So we'll move on to the next segment of this discussion. Maybe, Alan, when we get the calves out to grass, what sort of weight gains should farmer be achieving or want to be seeing?
Yeah, I suppose, Michael, we're targeting in around zero point 0.7, zero point 0.8 of a kilo a day over the first grazing season at grass. Now, if we look at the results we've seen from the vast majority of the Green Acres farmers, they've hit that or higher for the bulk of their calves. And really, look, it's the cheapest time to put on that type of weight gain. If you take, your typical calf, you're dealing with a small stomach, the intakes they will have of meal or grass or whatever it is you're feeding them over that first grazing season will be small relative to the level of weight gain they're going to achieve. Compare that to trying to make up higher levels of weight gain with older animals, let's say in the final finishing phase at 24 months. You have a much bigger stomach to fill on the animal, and you have a much more mature animal you're trying to feed, you to try and put on, similar levels of weight gain. So it's much more expensive at the later stage. So we try and get as much of this weight gain done in the first year. That's key. What we do notice is that some of these later calves are missing the target. We're seeing them only hitting probably somewhere between 0.5 to zero point 0.6 of a kilo a day over the first grazing season. And that may be down to a number of factors, but the one we kind of pinpointed to is that maybe when they hit grass, their stomachs often aren't fully developed. And, keeping that meal in the diet is probably essential for the likes of these late calves during the first grazing season. And when I say a late calf, what I actually mean is a calf born kind of from late March onwards. That's what I classify as a late calf. The early ones seem to hit the weight gains no problem. These January, February, and up to Patrick's Day calves. When you hit into April, early May born calves, even you're dealing with an animal that's a much more underdeveloped rumen when they're being turned out to grass compared to the early born ones.
And maybe once you get these calves, maybe Pat's already spoken a bit about this on his farm. When you get the calves out to grass, can farmers look at easing back the levels of concentrates that they're feeding?
Again, I would say it depends on what the stage of life of the animal. For the early ones, they say, if you're buying January born Friesians, etc., I would say, yeah, if they'll be weaned after 10 weeks. So if they're born the middle of January, you're talking about, early April, they're weaned off milk. They should be, by, the month of June, be fairly well developed in terms of their rumen to actually harness grass and work off grass only for the vast majority of the grazing season until you hit into September time, when grass dry matters drop and they would need a return to some level of concentrates. But for those late calves, again, I would be saying you keep going with that meal all the way through. If you're talking about a late March onwards calf, you're looking at keeping probably at least a kilo of meal in them for the full grazing season. Okay. Now, if you're buying small bunches of calves, it may not be worth your while to split them up. If you're only buying 20 or 30 calves, which is typically what a lot of farmers buy, and half of them are born before Patrick's Day and the rest are born after it. Well, look, I'd be saying probably keep that meal into them for the full grazing season rather than splitting them up, because, splitting small bunches of calves, they're not going to eat much anyway. It makes grassland management quite difficult. So it's probably easier overall to, err on the side of caution and keep the bit of meal in them, even if it's only a kilo a day. It makes a huge difference in terms of development of the rumen and how the growth rates these calves can achieve. But again, it's down to when they're born. If your calves that are born today, they should be fine by the time June comes to pull the meal for a few months. But if you go another 6 weeks down the line, different story.